on which you're hanging your hat?
Sure, so our position is that the 4 criteria under 47607B are pre-suspension of API. So when the legislature enacted AB 484, a piece of that was to enact Education Code 52052, and E4C of that subdivision says, okay, schools, anytime you need to use API to show something to receive a benefit under the Act, what you can do is you can use these 3 rubrics instead. And so C of those 3 rubrics is the alternative measures, and that's different and separate from what is in B4. So that is the hook here. The other 2 hooks in that are to look at the most recent API or an average of the last 3 APIs. So the second hook there, the average of the last 3, if you looked at the trajectory earlier, it showed an upward trend of the last 3 years too. So we would argue that both B and C are met under the new criteria after the suspension of state tests.
And based off of that alternative criteria, it doesn't specify amount of increases, et cetera. And we do believe, and the data we have demonstrated, perhaps not as concisely, does demonstrate that our students have grown both school-wide and by subgroup. Levels obviously vary, but we do feel pretty confident that our data does show, our alternative data specifically shows that our students have shown growth academically, both school-wide and by significant subgroup.
And just to note, this isn't just the position of Procopio. I mean, the CDE sent out a letter last year to all charter authorizers saying, look, in the case that state testing has been suspended and API is suspended, 47607B 1 through 4 are not all that you have anymore. This new 52052, the 3 criteria there are in addition to what's under the B standard in 47607. So this is a whole new rubric.
Okay, so is it your assertion that CDE staff ignored the tenets of that letter?
So it's tough to tell. I looked at the report that we took a look at. CDE said, this is what Long Beach did and this is what LACO did. And then CDE used a vague statement that said, we don't think that the alternative measures show enough student achievement. So I'm not sure whether they were saying alternative measures under the new criteria and the new rubric in accordance with CDE's own letter last year, or whether that was under the old B4 standard. But we wanted to make it very clear today that this is the new rubric.
Okay, I think that there have been a lot of great questions and commentary up here, and more importantly from you all, and there's been some suggestions for how to move forward. If there's not anything pressing, I'm going to suggest that we move to a motion phase right now, which is to either,
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank you
very
so
much. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Great example of decorum between authorizer and school too. Is there a motion, or is there someone who would like to make a motion on either the staff recommendation, a modification of it, or in another direction? Yeah.
Well, this is really a troubling story. This is, to me, a lack of leadership at the charter school level. I think there were signs of urgency. I feel bad for the students and families based on what the motion I'm going to make, because since I've been on this commission, if we use the same criteria we've used in the past with the same kind of data, then we uphold what the department has recommended. And I do agree with the chair what should happen as the petitioner goes to the state board if there's a chance. I think your comments were right on target with that. And my motion would be to uphold the department's recommendation.
Is there a second so we can discuss that at all? Yeah, Curtis, you're going to second it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll second it, given that we have a choice to either, approve or. I'm gonna second.
Okay, so any questions or comments about that? I think that those are reluctant motions, if I picked that up correctly, for the obvious reasons. So with that, we will do a roll call vote on that. We'll start with Ari.
I say reluctantly aye.
Okay, John.
Reluctant, aye.
Mark.
Reluctant aye.
Cindy. Curtis.
Aye.
Matini.
Reluctant aye.
And I am a reluctant aye. So that motion moves forward with a recommendation to the state board that staff's recommendation be approved.
Can I ask?
And, yes,
Given, I don't think that I've heard a reluctant aye as an option for the vote, but how consistent it was. And I'm under the impression that part of that that a great deal of that has to do with the lack of indicators that they've been able to show of academic and other indicators of quality school that might be consistent with the kinds of things you'd see in the state priorities. So I'm assuming that if those turned out to be much stronger than the presentation has been here today, much stronger by the time they get to the state board, that's something that those of you that are reluctantly eyeing, think we should take into consideration. I'm just asking, I'm not asking you to change the motion.
yeah, yes.
I for one, think that ultimately, this is all about the school doing presenting a much more compelling case that says, we have in fact, our students have in fact performed at least equal to, if not better than the schools for which they're coming. And I think that the fact that there has not, I don't believe there has been compelling evidence that is true, even though that evidence may well exist.
Right, so based on the
So
test
if-
scores, that has been.
If that could be presented, then hopefully that could be presented to the state board, and the state board can consider it in light of that new, much more compelling evidence.
Yeah, I said reluctantly because I feel like there probably are compelling reasons why the school should remain open. I don't know that they were adequately presented today. And I said reluctantly because I feel that way, and because I don't want the commission's recommendation to come across as a sort of categorical
Strong
statement that there's something, that there isn't something valuable in the school. There's a lot good there, and I think that if it's more effectively presented, if the alternative measures of performance are more clearly laid out, if things like the LCAP and how they're treating English language reclassification and some of the other fundamental goals of the school are more adequately presented, then I think that my gut is that the SBU would look at it differently than this commission did.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. All right, so our next meeting is, I don't have my calendar in front of me, it's in August.